Welcome to Full Arch Secrets. I'm your host, Jacob Hiller, Chief Growth Officer at Dental Implant Machine. Today I have on with us Julie Soukup. Hopefully I'm saying that all right. Did I hit it right?
Yeah.
Awesome. We're so glad. I've been super excited about having you on just because I got a bunch of surprise questions. And I think what you do and the organizations you're involved with, you get to hear a lot of where the magic happens and you kind of get to be in the trenches. And so I'm really excited to have some of your insight. Before we get started, I'm just going to share my screen for a minute and show where we're at here on the Full Arch framework. So this is our framework for scaling a dental practice in Full Arch. And so you can see at the bottom, we have operational and clinical foundation. Just have your team and your expertise and confidence in place. Then we have building authority, your marketing funnel, so that from when the patient goes from the chair in their home to the chair in your office and starts treatment, and then how to basically nurture and guide that patient to give themselves permission to do this treatment. So we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff over here in the closing architecture, how to upskill your team, train your team, and get them to get treatment acceptance. So we're excited about that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to us. So Julie, before we start, what's your favorite book back there? You got a whole thing here.
Right.
I see some of them have been kind of turned to face I like that,
I actually recently got this Way More Than Luck, which were commencement speeches, which I've been into lately because I have 2 4-year-olds, so I don't get to just sit and read like I used to. It's been kind of fun. So that's
now I wanted to see that because it's when I asked you to pick one, I thought you were going to turn around. There's going to be a virtual background, and the joke was going to be on me.
Well, about that. No, there really was.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, tell us how you got here. And I know you're involved with a couple organizations. So just get us up to speed real quick and hit the milestones.
For sure. So I started my career in dentistry with Clear Choice Dental Implants. I was their consultant in Washington, D.C., had an amazing, amazing team there. And then I was lucky to be promoted to support all teams across the country as their national sales manager. And a big point of that was using, okay, what are you doing in DC? What is your team doing in DC? Because it takes a team. It wasn't just me. And then how do we give that to other people? So when we started doing that, it was awesome to go to every single office that at the time Clear Choice had. I think it was at 35. So this is 10 years ago. I know they're a lot bigger now. And see what all these teams were doing and what made some teams do really well and not so well, and how they were kind of coming up with that chemistry and all of those pieces differently. And so we were like, hey, we've got to capture this. How do we scale this? How do we show other people what we're doing? And so we started looking at virtual tools for training. And that's where we found this company called Medical Memory, which is a company I have worked for now 8 years, where we use this HIPAA compliant app to video record our doctors and video record our consultants, and to be able to share and talk and communicate and train about best practices in the way that they communicate it. And it was this was before COVID, it was one of the first times anyone had ever put that idea out there as far as how do we leverage virtual training for these teams, 35 people across the country. And also, your best consultants want to be consultants. They don't want to be trainers. So how do we also learn from these guys best practices, learn from the best doctors, best practices, because they didn't have the luxury of taking a week off to get trained or to go, shadow someone too. And what can we teach? And so that's one of the biggest reasons I actually left Clear Choice to join Medical Memory, was seeing the power that this tool had to be able to bring top tier coaching, top tier communication coaching, to consultants and to doctors across the country virtually. And I think that was what was really cool, is this was we are onto something with this ability to coach and train virtually. And so since then, we worked with Clear Choice. We worked with a few cosmetic companies. Sono Bello is another one of our companies that do cosmetic surgery. And they're really leveraging the tool for that reason is, you can have a consultant that's struggling. You can have a doctor that's even maybe struggling, or maybe they're doing great and just need a refresher, by putting a simple app on a phone, a HIPAA compliant app. You're able to get top tier coaching right away on the way that they're communicating and help support their practice there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Love that. So you got to go visit these offices and kind of, hey, this office is excelling, this office isn't, and got to be on the ground there with them And so what is it then? What's the common denominator of success in an office like that?
It's so funny. It's different too. And I think we talked about this briefly on our call. You can't train, a New York, Manhattan style doctor is going to have a different energy and flow than an Oklahoma style doctor. It's just different versus Seattle. And I think it's really teaching, and this is where video is so powerful and virtual coaching is so powerful, is it's helping teach these doctors to be authentic, to be aware of themselves in the ways that they should turn up and show more often, and the ways that maybe they need to turn these really great skills in themselves down. And what I mean by that is it's teaching one methodology, teaching them all to be robots, saying, hey, you need to do it. This is the best way to do it. You should do X, Y, Z. That's not how people are. That's not how different states are and cultures are. And so it was teaching them of how to be aware of those dials and when to turn them up and when to turn them down, and kind of getting into that transparent, authentic space where they were really choosing to connect with somebody empathetically, truly rich, like as themselves, and not manipulating them and not trying to, have some script or anything like that. And that, I think, is the biggest power in that space and in that virtual coaching. I still will never forget one of the best doctors that we had in San Francisco. The first time I went out there, he's like, I hit top numbers. And you don't want to be like, well, you are also in the best market. But you're like, yeah, okay, you do. And I will never forget sitting with him. And the first time he saw himself on video, and he was like, wow. I was like, what do you think about that? And he was like, I am kind of a jerk. And you're like, why do you say that? I'm not even letting them finish their sentence. I didn't know I was doing that. And I didn't even have to coach or say anything. All he had to see was himself once. And there was a huge shift. And I think that's the only power in virtual training and coaching, and that video with medical memory could do.
I see, getting to see yourself from a different perspective for the first time. Like, who's that?
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is that connection in the relationship with the patient is super important.
Yeah.
And being connected means you have to be authentic.
Yeah.
But now you got this dynamic where everyone's super different, Oklahoma, Los Angeles, New York City, and you got to be authentic, but at the same time, you've got to respect the space of the patient and remain authentic. So it's like this balance that you're walking. Is that kind of
100%?
That's the one. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you also brought up like the power of coaching, and we're obviously talking about sales too. And I think one of the questions I have that's I'm curious your input is, what is the difference between coaching and sales? Is there a difference between coaching and sales? What is the difference between coaching a patient versus selling a patient, or what is the difference between coaching and sales?
Yeah. So it's interesting you just said that, both as it relates to a patient. And when I am saying coaching, it's more of teaching a consultant, right, how to motivate them to shift some pieces of behavior, right, to potentially have a better experience at work. Interestingly enough, when you're looking at a patient, it's a similar idea. I mean, the best salespeople, sales has such a dirty connotation, but are influencers, And so where it is especially, when you're coming in for a full mouth restoration, these are people that have potentially let their teeth go, or genetics. There's typically shame involved, of money that's been spent, and it's going to take a big thing for them to move forward. It was an amazing thing to sell, because the stories of people that came, how their lives changed, how all of those things after they get this, made you be like, I know what this could do for you. But there is an element of that coaching motivation to try to get a patient to kind of see that, to see the work or investment or time that's needed to have a kind of true life change. And as you said, give yourself permission, right? Give yourself that. And I think that goes back to is, if I'm trying to sell you, that's about me, right? Whereas I think when you're somebody, it's about them. That's why, it's more of, how do we get where you're wanting? And what do you need? What yeses do you need? Do you need this yes for yourself? Do you need to get this yes from your husband? Do you need to feel comfortable spending this amount of money on yourself? What is it that you're needing? Where's the gap in there so that you can feel that? And just like anyone speaking about, what's my end goal? My end goal is, I want to one day run a company. Great. Well, as a consultant, if you want to be there at the end of the day, or, this is how you get it, right? Well, same with a patient. What do you want at the end? Well, I want to find more joy. I'm not smiling as much. It's affecting my whole life. Great. Well, how do we get there? And I think that's where it becomes less manipulative and more of like, how do we get to where you are? And let's work together to get all these yeses. So you do give yourself permission. I loved how you said that, which I think is different.
I like that. I think what got me there was sales is about me. I'm trying to get you to do something so I can have this. And coaching is about the outcomes for them.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't control them, but you can become a mirror for them and you can stand for the outcome that they want and the person they want to be. Sometimes I feel like in order to be good at sales, you need to take more of a coaching perspective, because as soon as they think, wait a minute, this is just about him, then you have resistance because now you're sitting across from them instead of standing beside them. So I had just recently felt that coaching sales, when you do it right, or when you do it with the right kind of heart and mind, kind of becomes coaching a little bit. And so the line started to blur for me a little bit.
100%. And I think that is where it goes even to of, if you're not knowing the answers to all of the reasons why they haven't moved forward, all of the reasons why they're scared, who's potentially they're scared to tell. If you're not knowing all of those answers, you have not earned the right to ask for a sale. Like, it's learning them, because oftentimes this is the first time or one in very few people we talk to. Like, I didn't hop on this call and be like, hey, let me tell you like my biggest insecurity right now. Like, no, we don't do that. As human natures, we don't. And so they're coming into this space of vulnerability, telling you something they're insecure about that they want changed. Like, honor that space and allow them to do that before you influence, and allow them to kind of have that conversation, if you will.
I see. Hold that kind of non-judgmental, I'm going to change this or I'm going to manipulate the situation space. I see.
And
So
two is, we talking about medical memory and how we will video record these patients, video record these consultations, and help get a consultant feedback. Because that doctor, he had a kind that I was talking about. He was very kind, and he was coached his kid's soccer. He wasn't trying to come across that way. He didn't realize that. He had the best of intentions. So teaching him small skills like, okay, wait till they're done, literally count to 2 and then go again, is teaching him some small practices that creates a better space for that patient to be able to talk. So it's not like, okay, doc, be more empathetic. He was trying, and a lot of doctors specifically, they're great at, especially dentists, that skill. They weren't salespeople. That most of them aren't, And so it's teaching them some of those little things that, how do we just take your personality, help you be more transparent, tweak a few little things you may not be aware of, and create that better space. And so that's where that coaching with medical memory became really powerful for those people that had that. And then with that is, there's another company that I work with and do consulting with called Smile Snap, which is actually where we help take that out a little bit, meaning the very first engagement with a patient is actually through what we're calling Smile Snap 360, which is where one of our consultants is the one having that very first exchange before they come to their office. So where a patient, so again, would fill in some information, here's a few pictures, and then a virtual consultant on our side would say, hey, Jacob, I'm so glad you're looking at this. These are the things you said that you value. These are the things that you said that you need. I saw your pictures. Here's all the information that you need. Now let's set up that first consultation so you can feel really comfortable. So it kind of lays that foundational work for that patient to be in a better space, which is really helpful for doctors that don't potentially have a consultant or don't want to do this all the time, that are kind of needing a little bit more hand-holding kind of through that sales funnel.
I see. So medical memory is HIPAA, video coaching portal so that you coach remotely and have an opportunity to see yourself in a whole new light and get coached. Be open to that.
Like a doctor, I always say, if you've never seen your consultant on video, you need to download it and start watching some of them, or you've never seen yourself on video. And so that's definitely a tool for video recording, coaching as a team, leveraging one of our coaches. But if you're like, okay, we just don't have that. We don't have that kind of team. I don't have that many people, or the people I have in place are not going to have that skill set. I need something more. That's when Smile Snap is incredibly effective, where, great, we'll take on that first conversation before they come into your office so that they're just set up a little bit more about what to expect. to kind of set you up there. So it just, some offices need both. And I think there's so much power now in video, in virtual, in coaching, and COVID opened it up so that you can get expert training remotely. You can get an expert consultant talking to your patients before they come into the office without investing right there. And I think that's changing the way that doctors can communicate with these patients and opening up their leads, so they're not just counting on a marketing team. Like, well, what are you doing? Are you giving this patient the best experience that they can get while they're there? And that's where these tools are powerful to kind of bring that virtual video element to these practices.
Yeah. And so sounds like, if you look at the patient journey from, for example, anxiety, discomfort, and isolation, really. And then, when they engage with the marketing, it's kind of the first connection. And so the time that patient journey starts, you have Smile Snap as one of the products you have to engage and guide that patient until they get to the treatment coordinator, at which point you have medical memory to involve the coaching. And so you kind of are covering the patient journey, so to speak.
For sure. And I think that's the power, just as you said, is a lot of patients that are looking at this, it's been going on for a long time, typically, a lot of shame, a lot of fear. What are people going to think? What's my wife going to think? Just because I need this for me, there's all these things. And so some of it is getting that first engagement with Smile Snap of removing that anxiety, being more transparent about exactly what's to be expected, kind of say, like, get them to a place of here's a lot of information so that you're feeling more comfortable and that you are not alone. And we will help get you to where you want to be and help you create a plan, regardless of whatever fear is holding you back, and then, having that. So that's a great way, or having those patients when they do come in, ensuring that consultant is either starting that conversation or continuing that conversation of empathy to make a lot of times people, just as you said, not feel alone, feel more confident, and be transparent about what to expect, and then help motivate them to make a change in their lives,
Right on. Yeah. Connect with their desires and motivation and help guide that. At what point does someone in an office become uncoachable? What makes a person uncoachable? Do I have a team member who's uncoachable? Am I uncoachable? What to look out for is someone coachable?
It's 100% attitude. Like, I've made this joke that I was like, I can make any consultant, like a top tier consultant. Can they make themselves that? Like, so that's some of it. There's so many people that get defiant, or this is why I do it this way, or this is what, are you not open for influence? If you're not open for influence, you're uncoachable. And it's like communication skills are like any skill. Like, I can't become an expert golfer tomorrow by watching the PGA. I just can't. And so it's about, okay, great. Let's put this club in your hand. How does your grip look? Practice, practice, practice. Great. Widen your stance. Practice, practice, practice. Great. Now that you've got those things down, let's do the short game. Practice, practice, practice. And I think that's where coaching comes into play is, great, let's take this one thing that maybe you're doing really well and have you practice it. Great, let's now do another thing and practice it. Now let's put these things together and practice it. And if you're not willing to get to practice and to get feedback, if you're thinking there's this special pill that I'm going to give you and all of a sudden you're amazing at communicating, or there's this 1-day course that you're going to take and all of a sudden your practice has changed, it's so naive. That's not how it takes to learn any skill, even learning dentistry. And so that's, I think, the power of some of these pieces with coaching. It's like, if you really want to elevate your practice, you got to put in the work, which is you have someone review it, give feedback, have someone review it, give feedback, keep doing that. And so in our practices that they're like, wow, that's more than I want, that's where Smile Snap and, okay, well, at least set the ball up on the tee for you to hit your best shot. Yes. So at least we can kind of do that. But yeah, for those that are say it's uncoachable, actually what's scarier to me are the people that are like, oh, I took this course for this day. I know it. And I'm like, good. Like, okay, good. Like, that's not how you learn anything. You can't watch a movie and be a great golfer. You can't watch a movie and be a great communicator. You might have some tips, but they will fade back into like their normal patterns if they don't practice it and make it a part of their culture and their team culture of trying to consistently improve the way they communicate. And it goes beyond just their patients. I mean, I've had so many providers be like, I've done better with my kids. Like, I'm talking to my wife better. And I'm like, that's what I love, because it's communication skill, being more vulnerable, being more transparent, asking the right questions. It works in anything, you know?
I see. And something that you said there kind of made me realize, like you said, it's about attitude, and we might have somebody on our team who is resistant and, demonstrates attitude. But sometimes the person who is resistant and demonstrates attitude is actually protecting themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is like actually the idea of being coached means I have to say I could improve, which means to say that maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not good at all, or whatever. And think that when you encounter that attitude, maybe you're just kind of that person is protecting their vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it comes down to. But
well, and you're so right too. And I think that's why there is so much power in a coach that is not in your office, not your office manager, not your doctor, because the first conversations for the teams that I do is I'm like, bro, I'm on your team. Like, I am on your team. Like, if you accelerate, I accelerate. Like, we are on the same team here. Your job is not at risk. They're investing in you to get that. I've had people that are like that at first, that you have to have that breakdown. Like, I'm on your team. They just invested in me to help you. They wouldn't do that if they didn't believe you could do it. So like, I only win if you win. Let's do this together. And having them not feel like their job's at risk. And then also feeling like just that, like, I'm on your team and we'll do this together. And that's where a lot of times, especially at the very, very beginning of coaching someone, and that's where I'm saying, you don't just be like, all right, you need to do like your golf. You need to do this, and this, and now you're gonna be great. Like, first off, is just make sure they know the things they do really well, that they don't normally do all the time. Like, man, I really love how you like sit down and you actually like ask like 2 or 3 questions and lean forward. Like, and you should do that for every patient. So that's something they know that they could do every time. Or you find these little things. That's why video is great. Is like, look at how she responded to you when you do that. Awesome. Do that every time. And seeing the things that maybe they are unaware of, like that are in the back of their brains, and bring it to the forefront. That's like, this is excellent. Do it all the time. And that, I think, really starts getting people just to be somewhat self-aware of the things they don't realize that they're doing and doing well first, which they already know how to do. They just have to do it more consistently. And I think that's always step one to get a person more receptive to even receiving coaching.
I see. Let's say you're coaching someone, they're a treatment coordinator and great person, but they're not being assertive. They're not being assertive as far as asking for the sale, so to speak, or guiding to a decision, to actual consideration of the treatment. Now, on the other hand, you have kind of that path, and then you also have the path of the person who just is able to stay really, really connected with their patients, cry with their patients, just draw out why they're really there. So you got like these 2 skill sets. And sometimes you have a treatment coordinator or a salesperson who leans towards just being aggressive. And they actually perform better to some degree, because it's better to ask for the sale than to not and just be there. And then you have the other one who is maybe not pushy, but is staying connected through the process. Which one of those skills, and I know you don't have to choose one or the other, but for this question, I'm just wanted to ask you, which one of these skills do you think is more important? To be assertive or aggressive, or to remain connected, but at the same time, be passive and maybe not ask for the sale? So they both have their drawbacks and downplays. Which one do you choose?
I was aggressive. I connect more with the person that's aggressive. That was how I started. It took a lot of practice from some great coaches and mentors of mine to learn how to go into more of that compassionate style. The thing is like the best, this is such a cop-out, but the best have both. And I think that's something is for some of these people that it's also a lot of breakdown. So for someone that's a lot softer in that place is identifying what makes you not want to ask for that. What makes you not be kind of aggressive? What makes you kind of not want to be more assertive? And then same for the other one. It's interesting that those are the 2 things that you talked about, because I actually think that has more to do with pace. Meaning, so the person that's aggressive, I would be telling, maybe slow it down. Just slow everything you're doing, just slow it down a little bit. Same stuff. Aggressive always feels kind of things are moving really quickly, or I'm trying to get that ball. You're controlling the ball. There's times to control the ball. There's no question. But and similar with the one, like we had I remember this consultant that, she connected to a whole nother level. Well, she's taking 2 hours to do this, which isn't something we can do for every patient. So it was also teaching her skills of how to, great, let's talk about the future. Great, what are we going to do next? Great, what is that? And same as saying, if you really are connecting and caring about this person, it's your job. Like, they're coming to you for help. They're not coming to you for therapy. Let's talk about how we can get them there, and kind of giving some key phrases or key things. Like, I remember teaching her, like, okay, we talked about what happened. Now let's talk about what we're going to do about it. And that was, as soon as she started saying that, she's like, I just needed that one little step to kind of lean into the solution and being aggressive. And same kind of back to the other one. He was so quick to be whatever. You're like, take that step back of saying, great, you wake up tomorrow. What is your perfect day with a perfect smile? What are you going to do? Like, that's a great thing to know regardless. And it would help prevent cancellations, which usually aggressive people have more cancellations. So it wasn't changing either one of their styles. It was just saying, turn it down. Here's a great question to ask to help turn that down, or turn it up. Here's a great question to lead into kind of being more assertive towards the end. And that's where I go to, is to teach everybody, like, ask 10,000 questions. Like, you can't that's where you have to almost have a coach to guide you in both of those scenarios, because you can't, either one of those people, if you try to make them robots, you're doing them a disservice and they're not going to perform at their best. Either one of them, the aggressive one, especially because I related to that. Like, if you're trying to make me all lovey-dovey, it's not going to go. And I'm going to resent it and resist your coaching. But if you're seeing and giving me useful tools of just shifting my grip just a little bit, how much further I could shoot it all day long,
I see. I like your feedback there about pain. Yeah, a little bit. That's all right. You got the point. I know it was not a realistic question, but it's just to realize that there's two really important aspects, and that's, actually going somewhere. It's not just having coffee with a patient and being aggressive, but not too aggressive. Something that's interesting too is, like, you could have a salesperson who is selling like a coach, is connecting, is help guiding that patient, connecting with why they're really there, what I call the secret conversation. They're not there for zirconia. They're there for looking at themselves in the mirror, for connecting with themselves and those around them. But then you also have, frameworks that we can provide a salesperson. For example, if there's true scarcity, let's say you get on Airbnb and there's a hotel, but there's only one left and it says only 2 left at this price. You buy it right there on the spot. Same pitch, same description, but now there's scarcity. Have you seen scarcity be used by doctor offices or dental offices or anything like that to help frame and push consideration from the patient from a scarcity perspective?
So you may not like this answer. I feel leveraging tools like, we only have one slot open, or come in today because there's this spot open for you and we'll give you $1,000 off. I feel that's manipulative. I feel like you're selling somebody a lifestyle change, not a car. You're selling someone a shift in their, truly, like, in their life, not like a titanium bar. And I feel that do those type of things, scarcity, deals, like any of that, aren't confident in their sales skills and they're looking for cheap tactics. I think the same patient would say yes, whether they were handed $2,000 off to have their exam today and get started today, as they would if they just were connected with more. And if anything, you risked trust. You're taking that trust equation, making me not see you as a transparent piece, but rather someone who's trying to manipulate me. So that might not have been the answer you wanted, but I don't think those are fair.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's definitely a manipulation. And I just think it's interesting that it's so easy for someone to come and say, what do you have? Great. Is this the change you want to see in life? It is, but why now? That's the final piece to the puzzle, is like, I want this. You've connected with why. And like, we hope that why now is because this is the outcome you want. And if not now, then maybe never. And for a lot of patients, I think that may be true. If it isn't now, then it's probably going to be never. And I think helping that patient to come to that moment that says, hey, to be honest, let's look at this decision and decide. If it's going to be a no, let's just decide no and figure it out and cut the pain of asking ourselves maybe all the time. If it's going to be a no, let's make it a no. And if it's going to be a yes, let's make it a yes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of the salesperson's tool, is to help them arrive at the point of, hey, let's make the decision.
Yeah. And I think that goes so much into that space of, these people are being vulnerable for the first time and talking about something they're insecure about and they want change. They're coming to you for change. And then the second thing is like having that of being a coach and being a guide and being a mentor. But the one thing I do want to say with that is that I think that for some patients, and I think this was a huge shift in Clear Choice when I became a consultant and then was in the training place, the biggest thing I did first was talking about what we were calling callbacks. And that's where it's like, hey, if you're leveraging, true trust, true transparency, wanting to understand this patient, being empathetic, recognizing that this is a 20 to 60 year end surgery, and, being kind of aware of all of the things or all of the yeses, even outside of their own head, that they have to do. And you handle that conversation with like grace and true concern, that a lot of these patients, I agree with you in kind of having that moment of saying like, there's nothing missing here. I'm going to push you because I earned this conversation and you told me that you want to start dating. Like you told me that, you gave me that gift, so I'm going to push you. But for some of these patients that just needed more time or kind of to get their ducks in a row, and to what I would say, continue that conversation with them. And so I think ClearChoice had such a mindset when I was promoted and we had a new CEO at the same time, and he had shared the mindset I had, which was also like, we're not closing same day things. We're not doing, here's your spot, it's open today, like, let's go. Like we weren't doing that. And that it was taking away that, seeing that, okay, they have to decide this in this moment, and seeing, okay, what are the things that you need to know or need to have answered to move forward. And it's great, you need to talk to your mom. I'm going to keep you accountable to that. Great, you need to ask your home equity line of credit. I'm going to be accountable to you. And seeing it as a longer conversation past just that consultation, and seeing callbacks in those things. And once we started looking at, older leads, the gold in the hills, I call them, any of those things and gold in the hills, it sounds so manipulative and salesy, but there's so much people that are like, now is the better time. Now I am maybe have a better job, or maybe I did have a bad breakup. Like I can't stay in this space anymore. I've had something else that has provided more change. Maybe my why now wasn't strong enough that first time I came in for my consultation, but if you handle these people with kindness and like what their goal is and how they want to get there, and stay kind of in touch to continue to give them information, they will come back. And I think that's where sometimes, people have used either coaching because they're like, gosh, we get these guys so close and they don't move forward, or even the virtual things of saying, offer a virtual consultation to everyone that hasn't come in for 6 months. You might have 2, 3, 4 years of old patients. Offer this tool up for at least these patients to get re-engaged in some sort of virtual consultation. Both of those are being like, how do we a patient's not quite to yes. How do we keep filling in these gaps until they get there? Is it finance? Is it comfort? Is it family? Is it a parent? Is it a spouse? There's these gaps to get there. And assuming if they didn't move forward, they don't have money, a lot of people could ask, or I've had people that apply for financing for them. And so it comes like, own your space. Marketing companies will give you these leads, but what are you converting them at? Like how many of those leads are closing? How long are they closing? Are they closing in 4 months? Are they closing in 6 months? How can you take your close rates of people that are showing up and make it better? It's so often the dentist will say, or orthodontists will say, man, it's just the leads or bad leads. Nobody has any money. And I'm just like, I just laugh. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, well, how are you communicating? How's your consultant communicating? Are you using a virtual consultation to set it up? And if you're not leveraging all those tools to like improve your lead flow and continuing to build that relationship with the patient, if you're trying to high pressure close them day one, well, I wonder why they didn't close. Like, I wouldn't want that. And so I think it kind of goes, on both sides of it is like, what's your follow-up? What's your close rate? Like, what do you do with these leads that are given to you? And if the patient maybe doesn't quite have a strong why now right now, why now at that moment, we know it's going to get worse. So, being top of mind, reminding them what their future could be, reminding them what Christmas could have been like, or with a confident smile, being an advocate because they told you these things, and helping them get to that. Yes, their why now could be like, now I'm ready. I can't do another Christmas like this. Well, I had seen you for 3 months, but now their why now is more strong. So I think it's the best of the best are aware of all of those pieces. And actually they have more fun because they're connecting better. They're helping people. They're really motivating people. They're influencing people. They're not selling people,
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is you need to create a space where, the decisions that need to be made, there's space to do it. If you make the space too small and they can't have the freedom to make those decisions or explore the things they need to, then they'll probably back out because it's scary. But at the same time, you want to guide enough to where they're not able to just start listening to their anxieties again, or their fears or their shame saying, no, you should spend that money on this or that, or you're not worth that, or that's too expensive for you. And so at one side, you got, considerations and commitment that they need to listen to. And on the other hand, maybe these anxieties and things that they have to come to terms with and not be guided by, because they can just as easily go back to that and suddenly they're not choosing themselves. Suddenly they're not giving themselves permission. So that's an interesting take. So what's the best way to connect with you to learn more about how we can get coaching into an office or get some help at the first stages of the patient journey to help nurture them to that level? How do we reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So if you see my name, you could look it up and message me and I will respond right there. But the two websites of the company is the Medical Memory. Now, the Medical Memory actually is used to also send videos to patients, but that's the medium that's used for coaching. So www.themedicalmemory.com. I'm Julie at that. And then SmileSnap is that, smilesnap.com, www.smilesnap.com. And I'm Julie at that. I would say the quickest and fastest, look up my first and last name on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. Happy to engage there. But both of these tools are profound, again, to help close rates, help coaching, help your practice. I want to say Medical Memory, a lot of the website is very much directed towards spine surgery, orthopedic surgery, all those things. It is also used in this coaching space. You don't have to send the video to the patient. It goes to the trainer instead. So if you're like, wait a minute, this looks interesting. But both of those resources are definitely available. And then our team on both sides can help equip, talk about it, demo it, all of the things to really, again, using these virtual tools that are now readily available to accelerate your practice, to have experts, the best of the best that are in your office, still helping support you and your patients to move forward. So yeah.
Awesome. If you're listening to this, there's not a lot of people. When I talked to Julie the first time, I was like, there's not a lot of people who've heard that many treatment coordination, treatment presentations, and picked them over with a fine tooth comb. There's not that many people who I could talk to who's going to have seen and have the insight that Julie does. So even a conversation with Julie, I'm sure is going to yield some fruit, whether you use SmileSnap 360 and the Medical Memory, whether you use them or not. I'm sure that she shares generously and can help you get some direction for the next level. So I appreciate you sharing all the insight that you've gathered. And I know years and years and years, hours and hours of listening to get to the comments you made today. So I appreciate that. And JulieSoukup, Julie Soukup. Yep. And then so you know where to find her.
So it's like soup in a cup with a K instead of, that'll help people because the OU messed up.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Once we put it on the blog, there'll be information below to contact you as well. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.